A silent, relentless war rages on, and most people never truly notice it. It's not the war fought on distant battlefields, nor the kind that dominates headlines. No, this is the profound, solitary war of a woman alone, utterly unsupported and tragically overlooked. There's no cheering crowd in her corner, no reassuring backup plan to catch her, and absolutely no one to call when the very foundations of her world threaten to crumble. She wakes up every single morning, not because she's rested, not because she's eager, but because she simply has no other choice. And that is strength. That is discipline forged in the searing heat of circumstance. That's the kind of resilience that can never be taught within the safe confines of a classroom. It is learned, brutally and undeniably, through raw, unyielding experience, through the sheer, desperate imperative of survival itself. People truly don't understand the crushing weight of silence, not the peaceful kind, but the hollow, echoing silence that follows her around when she's crying on the inside. Yet, despite the invisible torment, she still shows up, still works, still gives, still cares. And what happens when no one, absolutely no one, comes to save her? She doesn't just survive, she learns to become the most formidable hero in her own unfolding story. This isn't some shallow romantic tale of easy empowerment. This is brutal, this is raw, this is the alchemy of pain transforming into unstoppable purpose, of paralyzing fear, crystallizing into laser-sharp clarity, of internal chaos meticulously sculpted into unwavering order. Because the profound truth is, external support is often a fleeting luxury, but personal responsibility, that is an unshakable, absolute necessity. And responsibility, when not just accepted but fully, deeply embraced, becomes the unwavering path to profound meaning. When a woman finds herself completely devoid of support, she truly has only two stark choices laid before her: collapse under the immense weight, or meticulously construct herself from the ground up, piece by agonizing piece. And the ones who rise, forging themselves in that isolating silence, they are the most profoundly dangerous to the insidious grip of mediocrity. They do not whine. They do not seek superficial validation from others. They quietly, stubbornly, powerfully build themselves brick by internal brick until they become far too powerful, too impactful, too radiant to ever be ignored. Most people mistakenly believe that strength announces itself with a roar, with loud declarations. But true strength isn't noise at all. It is quiet, formidable restraint. It is the unshakable composure held when every fiber of your being screams to give up, to simply lie down and cease. It's the whisper in her soul that says, "I will try again tomorrow, even when today was unequivocally unbearable." Imagine the woman who has faced the bitter sting of abandonment, the searing wound of betrayal, the relentless gnaw of poverty, the deep ache of loneliness, and still chose to keep her integrity intact, her values unwavering. She isn't just surviving, she is a fundamental pillar of civilization itself. She isn't waiting for a magic permission slip from anyone. She isn't pointing fingers, isn't lost in blame. Instead, she looks the hard, unvarnished truth directly in the eye and declares, with every atom of her being, "I will not be broken." Not because it's the easy route, far from it, but because the alternative, the slow, suffocating decay of bitterness, resentment, and ultimate defeat, is an even more excruciating path to walk. What often remains unseen, masked behind her quiet, composed demeanor, is a lifetime of relentless self-regulation, of the agonizing practice of doing what's necessary when every cell in her body rebels. It's a relentless, deliberate choosing of responsibility over the tempting, fleeting escape. It's showing up again and again, even when her body is screaming with exhaustion, even when her heart is shattered into a million pieces. And here's where the true revolutionary power lies. It's not just about getting through it. It's about becoming someone so intensely capable, so profoundly fortified from within, that no external circumstance, no storm, no betrayal can ever truly destroy her core foundation. That, my friends, is the silent victory. That is the slow-burning, breathtaking transformation. If you are listening to this right now, and you've been walking this path alone, shouldering burdens that no one else can see or comprehend, let this be a profound reminder. You are not invisible. You are not weak for feeling broken, for those moments of internal collapse. But you are utterly extraordinary for not letting that brokenness define your future, for rising above the dust of what sought to conquer you. Because the world doesn't need more empty noise. It desperately needs more people like you. People who face their dragons not with the illusion of slaying them once and for all, but by becoming incrementally stronger, wiser, and more resilient with every single encounter. So, stand up straight, shoulders back, face the world with that quiet, fierce courage. You were never meant to stay small, diminished, or silent. You were absolutely meant to rise. There is something profoundly tragic, yet astonishingly heroic, about a woman who moves through life with no safety net whatsoever. No father to provide a shield of protection, no mother to offer tender comfort, no partner to share the unbearable weight of the burden, no reliable system to gently catch her when she inevitably falls. She navigates the treacherous waters of the world with a kind of quiet, almost invisible urgency, and hardly anyone truly sees it. But that, precisely, is the point, isn't it? That is the essence of the silent battle. When there's no one there to witness your suffering, no one to hear your cries, it either crushes your spirit utterly, or it forces you, in the deepest part of your being, to become completely unbreakable. Now, truly, imagine waking up every single day in a life where not a single soul ever tells you that what you are doing matters, that your efforts have value. No applause, no genuine recognition, just the crushing weight of unspoken expectation. The world looks at her and simply assumes she will effortlessly hold it all together, and when she unfathomably does, they utter nothing. But when she falters, slips just once, perhaps under the immense strain, they are swift to label her unstable, too emotional, falling apart. This is the maddening paradox of being unsupported and yet relentlessly, utterly responsible. She is denied the simple privilege of weakness, the common human right to unravel without catastrophic consequences. She must be reliable, even as her own soul feels like it's fraying at the edges. And that, my friends, is the kind of suffering that won't ever appear on a medical report or be captured in a tidy statistic, but it relentlessly eats away at the soul, a slow, corrosive drip that erodes peace and joy. You might reasonably ask, how in the world does she endure this? How does a person keep moving forward when no one is clapping, when no one is checking in, when no one is even watching her desperate struggle? The answer is simultaneously brutal and breathtakingly beautiful. She keeps going because the very alternative is immeasurably worse. She understands, at some primal, guttural level, that giving up doesn't just mean rest or surrender. It means utter collapse. It means a terrifying entropy. It means death. Not literal physical death, but the much more profound, agonizing death of self-respect. And for someone like her, who has forged her identity in fire, that precious self-respect matters more than anything else in the universe. Her dignity is all she possesses, a shimmering shield in the darkness. So she carries it, like vital armor, even when it feels impossibly heavy, even when it chafes against her weary skin. There is an ancient, almost mythological strength that resides in a woman who consistently chooses to stand up when every fiber of her being, every exhausted cell, screams at her to simply lie down and stay there. Think about that for a moment. Just what does it truly take to walk into work, to conjure a genuine smile, to answer countless emails, to raise vibrant children, to diligently pay the bills, to lovingly cook dinner, and to do it all, every single task, with the full chilling knowledge that there is absolutely no backup, no escape plan, no one coming to rescue her if she finally breaks. She is walking a perilous tightrope, and not only is there no net, but no one is even holding the ropes taut. The sheer, unfathomable, mental weight of that existence is truly incomprehensible unless you have lived it, unless you have breathed its heavy air. And society often perpetrates a cruel irony. It praises fierce independence, especially in women. It champions self-reliance, until that very independence becomes inconvenient, until her strength, her self-sufficiency, makes others profoundly uncomfortable, until it quietly reminds them of their own absence, their own neglect. Then, suddenly, that very same strength is chillingly relabeled as coldness. That same tenacious determination is dismissed as bitterness. She's subtly or overtly told she's too intense, too serious, too much. But what, pray tell, is the alternative? Would you truly prefer that she fall completely apart, just so you can feel more comfortable with your own inaction? Would you rather she become desperately dependent, so you can falsely reassure yourself that she is manageable? And here's the deeper, perhaps more heart-wrenching irony. Many women in this exact situation don't even begin to comprehend how truly extraordinary they are, because no one, absolutely no one, ever tells them. No one points at them and exclaims, "What you are doing every single day is unequivocally heroic." Because heroism in their world doesn't look like explosive action movies or prestigious Nobel Prizes. It looks like showing up on a cold Monday morning after an entire weekend of silent, solitary crying. It looks like paying the rent with the last $20 in the bank and still, miraculously, finding the generosity to give the best, most substantial part of their sandwich to their child. It looks like swallowing crippling anxiety whole and expertly pretending to be perfectly okay, just so no one else gets worried, just so they don't add to the invisible burden she carries. And none of that, not a single solitary bit of it, ever gets medals. None of that receives public recognition, but it absolutely, profoundly should. We live in a time utterly obsessed with the performance of strength, the curated images, the loud affirmations, but tragically indifferent to the quiet, relentless reality of it. Real strength doesn't feel the need to post about itself online. It doesn't market itself with flashy slogans. Real strength is the woman, perhaps you, sitting alone in her car before her demanding shift, taking slow, deep, deliberate breaths, silently steeling herself to give the world her very best, even when she has nothing left, absolutely nothing to give. That's strength. And it's not glamorous, and it's certainly not loud, but it is, without a doubt, the silent bedrock of all civilization. And let me impress this upon you: when a woman constructs herself without any help, when she builds her life with her bare hands and indomitable spirit, she doesn't just build a home or a career, she builds an unshakable philosophy. She understands responsibility not as a burden, but as the scaffolding of meaning. She understands the power of delayed gratification, the profound value of character, because character was the only thing she could truly rely on. And that, in essence, makes her dangerous. Not in a malicious, harmful way, but in a way that makes mediocrity tremble in its boots. You cannot easily manipulate her. You cannot guilt-trip her into submissive silence, because she has stared down and faced far worse than your flimsy disapproval. She has faced her own deepest fears, her own terrifying demons, and she has survived. What transformative magic does it weave upon a person when they are relentlessly forced to become both the fiercely protective guardian and the tenderly protected, both the nurturing hand and the disciplined guiding force? It forges a kind of profound psychological wholeness, an integrated sense of self that most people will never come close to reaching, precisely because they are never pushed that far to discover it. Pain, true, soul-searing pain, if faced honestly and unflinchingly, doesn't break. It refines the very soul. It strips away every last shred of illusion. It incinerates entitlement. It brutally forces you to become excruciatingly precise with your precious time, with your unyielding boundaries, with your vital energy. And that precision, that profound self-awareness that makes her terrifyingly competent. But competence often is a lonely fortress. There's a peculiar sorrow that accompanies being perpetually the strong one, the capable one. Everyone naturally leans on you, burdens you with their expectations, and you, having trained yourself for relentless endurance, are never truly allowed to lean back. She could be surrounded by a room full of people, a buzzing crowd, and still feel, with a chilling certainty, that she's holding up the entire room by herself, because, in a very real and metaphorical way, she is. She has become so consistently reliable, so predictably capable, that others, unconsciously, slowly stop checking in, and that truly is the tragic, unseen cost of this formidable strength, invisibility. People only ever truly notice the mess. They never see the painstaking maintenance, the relentless vigilance. They never see the countless battles you didn't have to fight, because she, in her quiet fortitude, had already fought them and won, long before anyone else even noticed the threat. She absorbs chaos. That's her often unspoken role. That's her unseen burden. And in those rare, precious, quiet moments, when she is finally, utterly alone with her racing thoughts, it hits her with a pang. No one truly knows how hard this journey has been. And perhaps no one ever will fully comprehend the depth of it. But that heartbreaking realization doesn't stop her, because she's not doing it for shallow praise, for fleeting recognition. She's doing it because she staunchly refuses to abandon herself. She absolutely refuses to let her temporary, cruel circumstances dictate her enduring character. She refuses to allow the gaping absence of external support to justify the insidious presence of self-destruction. That, my friends, is integrity. and integrity under this kind of relentless pressure is the purest form of grace imaginable. So, the next time you encounter a woman who appears, on the surface, to have it all together, look again. Look deeper. Peer past the composure. Because the raw, aching truth is, she might very well be in the silent, grinding middle of a profound war that no one else can see. A war she fights every single solitary day without backup, without sympathy, without rest. And yet she is still standing, still giving, still showing up. That is not merely resilience. That is a breathtaking, silent transcendence. That is the unseen, unheard battle of a woman with no support. And it may very well be the most powerful, most inspiring force you will ever truly encounter. Chaos is not some distant, abstract concept whispered in philosophy books. It's not something distant or theoretical. Chaos is the daunting mountain of laundry piling up when you're utterly too exhausted to even care. It's the sharp, unexpected phone call that delivers gut-wrenching bad news. It's a missed paycheck that throws everything into disarray. An escalating argument with someone you deeply love. The aching, pervasive loneliness that creeps into your bones when the world finally goes quiet at the end of a long day. It's waking up with anxiety savagely clawing at your chest, a tightness you can barely breathe past, and still having to get up, still having to make breakfast for someone else. Chaos, in its rawest, most unfiltered form, is life itself. And when you are truly alone, when you have absolutely no one to help you structure it, to tame it, chaos becomes your closest, most constant companion. But here's the crucial understanding. Profound meaning is what stunningly emerges when you face that chaos. Perhaps not by joyful choice, but often by fierce necessity. You do not conquer chaos by desperately running from it, by avoiding it at all costs. You confront it. You stare it down unflinchingly, and in the act of confronting it, you become something undeniably more, something infinitely deeper than you were before. That, in essence, is the core of this transformation. That's what most people tragically fail to understand. They mistakenly believe life is primarily about chasing happiness, about finding comfort, about achieving uninterrupted peace. But it isn't, not primarily. Life, in its purest, most challenging form, is about bearing, and in some rare, deeply honest moments, even miraculously redeeming the suffering that is fundamentally, universally unavoidable. And when you don't have support, when no one is coming to heroically save you, that searing truth reveals itself with lightning speed and without an ounce of mercy. People frequently ask, how do I find meaning in my life? But that, my friends, is often the wrong question entirely. You don't find meaning like you stumble upon a forgotten set of keys. Meaning is something far more profound. Meaning is something you painstakingly build. And you build it in the consuming fire of struggle, in the relentless grind, in the often mundane, incredibly difficult, and utterly unglamorous work of doing what is necessary, especially when you genuinely don't feel like it, especially when absolutely no one is watching your arduous efforts. Meaning is painstakingly cultivated by choosing profound responsibility over corrosive resentment again and again, by waking up and deciding every single morning with unwavering resolve that you will not let yourself plummet into that seductive pit of despair. Even when that pit looks surprisingly comfortable, even when surrendering to it feels undeniably justified, there is a peculiar, almost sacred dignity in consistently doing what absolutely must be done, day after day, without complaint. And there is an even deeper, more profound kind of power that blossoms from taking radical personal responsibility, not necessarily because you caused the problem, but because you fiercely refuse to be utterly destroyed by it. That is what true transformation looks like. Not becoming someone entirely new, but becoming someone irrevocably real. Someone profoundly whole. Someone who has stared at their suffering with unflinching honesty and declared, "This will not define me, but it absolutely will refine me." And that, inevitably, is where competence takes root and flourishes. Competence is not a given, it's an hard-won prize. It's painstakingly acquired through a gauntlet of trials, inevitable errors, and unrelenting repetition. It's not a natural talent. It's not some effortless gift bestowed upon the fortunate. It's a foundational skill, forged and hardened in the white-hot crucible of pressure. And for a woman with no support, Competence is not a mere aspiration, it is survival, because she absolutely cannot afford the perilous luxury of ignorance or incompetence. She cannot fall back on someone else's skills, someone else's knowledge. So, she learns through stark, brutal necessity how to meticulously manage money, how to deeply regulate her own volatile emotions when they threaten to overwhelm, how to rigorously plan for contingencies, how to deftly repair what's broken, how to strategically negotiate her worth, how to firmly say no when her boundaries are tested, how to simply endure beyond what feels humanly possible. She becomes sharp, precise, utterly functional, and there is something deeply, undeniably noble about that grueling process, even if the world around her never truly sees or acknowledges it. But with hard-earned competence often comes the chilling reality of isolation, because as you grow stronger, more capable, more unwaveringly reliable, people inevitably begin to expect it of you. They slowly stop checking in, assuming you've got it handled. They cease offering help, convinced you don't need it. They simply assume you're fine. And that's the painful paradox. The better you become at impeccably holding everything together, the fewer people around you ever truly realize how heavy, how unbelievably crushing it actually is. So, you walk through life carrying this silent, unspoken burden, being everything to everyone, and yet often nothing truly for yourself. And it wears on you. It slowly chips away at your softness, your vulnerability, your ease. But at the exact same time, it makes you undeniably formidable. To carry that kind of unrelenting responsibility, day after agonizing day, year after grinding year, fundamentally changes a person. It forces you to confront brutal choices between succumbing to bitterness and embracing a liberating transformation, between the easy allure of victimhood and the arduous climb of growth, between surrendering to chaos and deliberately imposing order. And the only sustainable path, the only path that leads anywhere truly worth going, is the one meticulously paved with profound meaning, not comfort, not avoidance, meaning. And meaning emerges from aiming at something far higher than your personal suffering. It springs from deciding, deep in your core, that even if everything else in your external world falls apart, you, your internal fortress, your spirit, simply will not. It's built through constructing a life so solid, so immaculately structured, that the most devastating storms can rage, and they still won't be able to sweep it away. You don't reach such a place by fortunate accident. You get there by profound sacrifice. You give up the comforting, seductive fantasy that someone else will swoop in and fix it all for you. You stop waiting for a mythical permission slip from anyone. You bravely stop looking backward at what was lost, and instead, you relentlessly start walking forward, one brutal, deliberate, deeply meaningful step at a time. You meticulously put your own life in order, not because it's convenient or easy, but because it is absolutely, profoundly necessary for your very soul. And in the unwavering act of doing so, you create a kind of psychological stability, an inner peace that most people only ever fleetingly dream of. That truly is the ultimate reward. Not fleeting fame, not hollow praise, but rock-solid, unshakable self-respect. The deep, ingrained, unbreakable knowledge that you have become someone truly reliable in a world that often, painfully, isn't. And never, ever make the mistake of thinking this path is emotionless. It is emphatically not. In fact, it demands more authentic emotional depth, more profound psychological courage than almost any other path you could choose. You have to allow yourself to feel it all, fully, deeply, completely, the gut-wrenching grief, the icy grip of fear, the searing heat of anger, the bone-deep, consuming fatigue. But the critical difference is, you don't let those overwhelming emotions paralyze you. You don't drown in their depths. You acknowledge them, you integrate them, you learn from their lessons, and then you move. Because you come to understand with visceral clarity that emotions are powerful signals, vital messengers, but they are not, and must never be, tyrannical dictators. And if you obey them blindly, without wisdom, you'll remain trapped, stuck in a debilitating cycle. But if you learn from them, if you allow them to inform your choices, you will profoundly grow. Growth is inherently painful. And transformation, that's even more so. It demands nothing less than the death of old, worn-out patterns, the painful shedding of old, limiting identities, the shattering of cherished, comfortable illusions. And when you have no one, no loving buffer to shield you from that raw pain, it burns intensely. But that same purifying fire also meticulously cleanses. It burns away the unnecessary, the superficial, the performative masks we wear. What's left, after the inferno, is irrevocably real. What's left is resilient beyond measure. What's left, stark and powerful, is you. Raw, refined, and undeniably capable. And when you become that person, that truly formidable individual, something incredible subtly begins to happen around you. The world itself starts to shift, not because the external world has suddenly changed, but because you have. You start to see with new eyes, with a clarity previously unimaginable. You start to act differently with purpose and integrity. You begin to inspire others not through carefully chosen words or grand speeches, but through your very presence, your quiet strength, your undeniable solidity. People begin to trust you profoundly, not because you demand their trust, but because you have proven yourself relentlessly, consistently in the fire. And in a world choked with empty noise and fleeting fads, someone who is truly solid, deeply grounded, and authentically competent becomes a lighthouse for others, a beacon of hope and strength. But the unvarnished truth is, none of this profound inner transformation comes without a steep price. You will lose things along the way. Your naive innocence, perhaps, your unquestioning optimism, your simplistic view of the world, maybe even some relationships that simply cannot tolerate or understand your ferocious growth. But what you gain in return, dear friend, is worth every single sacrifice. You gain an unshakable clarity, an intrinsic, deep-seated strength, an undeniable, resonant purpose. You gain the profound capacity to stand up, not just for your own sacred self, but even more importantly, for others who cannot yet stand for themselves. You become someone who can bravely bear the immense weight of responsibility without collapsing. Someone who can courageously walk directly into the swirling eye of chaos and, with quiet power, begin to create order where there was none. Not because it's ever easy, but because it's undeniably, profoundly right. That's what meaning truly offers. That's what embracing radical responsibility profoundly produces. That's how genuine, lasting competence is painstakingly born, through repeated, deliberate acts of courage in the suffocating face of fear, through purposeful, difficult movement toward what is inherently difficult, yet utterly necessary, through the unwavering refusal to ever let your circumstances define your core character. That, my friends, is the silent revolution. That is how true, deep transformation occurs, not all at once, in a dazzling flash, but moment by precious moment, difficult decision by difficult decision, sacrifice by heartbreaking sacrifice. The path itself is anything but comfortable, but it is unflinchingly, unapologetically real. And the person who emerges at the very end of it is, without a shadow of a doubt, unshakable. Not because they've miraculously avoided suffering, but precisely because they've deeply integrated it, profoundly understood it, and masterfully turned its ashes into a phoenix of unparalleled strength.